Hey assistant, how tall is the Empire State Building? It happened just after midnight. No shouting, no police, no dramatic goodbye. He opened the door, put her suitcase outside, and said one sentence that ended a marriage. You don't own anything here. By morning, she owned the entire company. And that's not a metaphor. That's how modern finance actually works. Most people think power lives where money is loud. The CEO title, the corner office, the lifestyle. But real power is quiet. It hides in paperwork, permissions, and systems most people never look at. This story matters right now because millions of people still misunderstand who really controls wealth in modern companies, including many of the people running them. Let's start at the beginning. He wasn't a cartoon villain. He was a respected founder. Tech-adjacent company, mid-size, fast growth, the kind of business podcasts love to profile. He was the face. She was invisible. They met before the company existed, before the pitch decks, before the valuation. She didn't code. She didn't pitch investors. So in his mind, she didn't build anything. That belief grew slowly, like rust. As the company scaled, so did his confidence, and eventually, his contempt. The night he kicked her out wasn't impulsive, it was calculated. He believed the math was on his side. He had the title, he had the salary, he had the shares. At least, that's what he thought. What he didn't have was ownership. Here's where the system starts to matter. Most people hear company ownership and imagine stock certificates or percentages on a cap table. That's the surface. Underneath is something more important: control layers. Think of a company like a building. The CEO runs the offices, employees work the floors, but the person who owns the land decides who stays and who leaves. In modern finance, that land isn't always equity. It's holding structures, trusts, voting rights, and, most importantly, who the assets legally belong to. Years earlier, before the company made money, the couple had set things up for efficiency. That word should always make you nervous. To simplify taxes and protect against lawsuits, the company wasn't owned directly by the operating entity. It was owned by a holding company, and that holding company was owned by a family trust. Her family trust, not because she was scheming, because her parents were careful. The founder, her husband, received shares, generous ones, but they were non-controlling. He could run the company, he could be the public face, he could even fire people, but he couldn't move the foundation. He was driving the car, she owned the road. For years, it didn't matter. The company grew, money flowed, everyone was happy, until the night power shifted emotionally, but not legally. When he kicked her out, he believed he was ending her access. In reality, he was removing himself from protection. Because the next morning, she didn't scream, she didn't argue, she logged in. Let's talk about how that's possible. In most mid to large companies, money doesn't sit in one bank account. There are operating accounts, payroll accounts, reserve accounts, credit facilities, and each one has permissions. Who can view? Who can approve? Who can move funds? Titles don't grant access. Authorizations do. And authorizations can be revoked, quietly. She was the primary administrator on the trust level, meaning she didn't need his permission to change anything. She didn't take the company. She reasserted ownership it always had. First, she froze discretionary spending. No alerts, no emails, just silent failures. Then, she revoked signature authority. His card still looked premium. It still tapped. It just didn't clear. By the time he noticed, payroll was pending, vendors were waiting, and the board was asking questions. Here's the uncomfortable math. Founders often confuse value creation with value control. They assume effort equals ownership. It doesn't. Ownership is defined by structure, not sweat. He had worked late nights. She had signed early documents. Guess which one mattered? When he stormed into the office that morning, demanding answers, he still believed this was a glitch, a banking issue, a technical delay. That belief lasted about 30 minutes. That's how long it took legal to explain that he didn't have the authority to override anything. Because authority doesn't come from confidence, it comes from documents signed years earlier, often without much thought. The irony is brutal. The very structures designed to protect the company were now protecting it from him. At this point, people expect a dramatic revenge moment. There wasn't one. She didn't show up. She didn't gloat. She let the system do what it was built to do, which is often the most terrifying outcome, because systems don't get tired. They don't argue. They don't feel guilt. They just execute. Within a week, the board voted, not to punish him, to stabilize risk. And from their perspective, the risk was obvious. A CEO who no longer controlled access, a founder with personal volatility, a legal structure pointing in one direction. He was offered a transition package. Generous. Final. That's when the headline changed. He lost everything overnight. That's not true. He never owned what he thought he did. This is where hype and reality split. We love stories about lone geniuses building empires, but real companies are machines, and machines don't care about ego. They care about inputs, permissions, and control. Here's the bigger implication. This isn't rare. It happens quietly in divorces, investor disputes, family businesses, and startups that scale too fast. People optimize for growth before understanding governance. They chase valuation before reading the fine print. They assume the loudest person is in charge, until they're not. And when control shifts, it's rarely dramatic, it's procedural. That's what makes it dangerous, because by the time you feel it, it's already over. So here's the uncomfortable question to sit with. In the systems you depend on, your job, your bank, your investments, are you the driver, or are you just someone holding the steering wheel, assuming the road belongs to you? Because one quiet morning is all it takes to find out.